I didn't think my opinion of evangelists, EV mouthpieces, could get any lower, but over the last couple of days it has. And today it's got even lower. In fact, I really can't believe it. And the justification for what's happened and what's been said in these articles, the EV shills seem to be gloating over the war that started and are literally wetting themselves because petrol prices are going to go up. Well, perhaps they will. And do you know what? If they do, I mean, I used to drive a Range Rover and now drive a T-Roc. I couldn't give a shit whether petrol goes up because it can double and I'll still be spending less. And I'm all right with that. But I'd rather do that than have these gloating morons using war as an excuse to sell electric vehicles when all the normal channels have failed. They can't sell them, they can't give them away. All sorts of incentives, government grants of taxpayers' money, low VAT on charging, low benefit in kind, and they still can't sell them. The only thing that might save them is war. And they can't think that war is a bad thing. They can't think that people are getting killed, property's being destroyed. It's good for electric vehicles. And do you know what? They make me sick. They make me absolutely sick. I don't think they could get any lower. Quick recommendation, it's not sponsored. I bought this myself. I've used the Hilo band for years, and for me it's been the easiest way to keep an eye on my blood pressure because it tracks through the day and night, so you're not relying on random snapshots or white coat readings. They've also added step tracking and sleep tracking in the app, which is really useful for seeing the bigger picture. If you use my link, you'll get 20% off, a 12-month subscription, and I'll earn £25 if it's a successful referral. Full transparency. Links below. Try it out. And then, when I just think they can't get any lower, I come across this article. Now, this article was in Transport and Energy. I'm assuming that their readers have a little bit of common sense and a little bit of nous about the actual realities of running electric vehicles, and that electric vehicles aren't all they're cracked up to be. So let me show you the article that's written and published in Transport and Energy. You'll laugh at this. I'm sure these are all made up names for ChatGPT. This is published on March the 26th, 2026 by James E.V. Eason. James E. Vision, James E.V., James E.V. is on. Is that a made up name? Who knows? But anyway, it says here, EV drivers protected from fuel price spikes. New analysis has revealed how electric vehicle drivers will be protected from price hikes resulting from global instability, war, that will negatively impact petrol vehicles, just petrol vehicles, not anything else, because there's no other parts of cars that are made with oil. No other bits of cars rely on the oil industry for making, transporting across seas, delivering. No oil's used there. So this was the story. So then I decided to delve deeper into it because as soon as I saw who it was written by, I thought this is going to be shite. According to the ECIU analysis, petrol car drivers will have to pay significantly more to fuel their vehicle. And then there's even a quote at the bottom by Colin Walker, head of transport at the ECIU. Colin Walker said, "This isn't the first time that wars and global shocks have left British drivers facing a jump in their fuel bills. And it won't be the last." No, it won't. But with over 1.8 million EVs now on UK roads, there are an increasing number of drivers who are much more protected from these spikes in fuel prices. So again, I decided to dig deeper. So I found the actual articles, giving the game away, on the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit website by Colin Walker, info@eciu.net. Bearing in mind, they've still not replied to my emails, tweets, messages on LinkedIn about where they get the figures from. They just ignore me, and fair enough. I'm used to that. But let's just read the first article. Article 1 of 2, written on the same day by the same person. And you listen, perhaps. If you don't believe me, I'll put a link to the articles. Read them both. Read the transport and energy story and make your own mind up. Some chap's been accusing me of manipulating figures. How can I manipulate them? They're the SMMT figures, and I just show you. I don't change them. I just show you exactly what it means to the motor trade and how the figures are actually being manipulated. It's not me manipulating them. I'm showing you how. Snap analysis. Iran crisis fuels petrol shock fears. 6th of March, remember that date, 2026. Petrol car drivers could see their fuel bills increase by over £320 a year, by Colin Walker. Last updated 6th of March 2026. With experts predicting that instability in the Middle East could see the price of a barrel of oil jumping to anywhere between $100 and $120 a barrel. New analysis from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit has revealed how much more this could see petrol car drivers having to pay to fuel their vehicles. By analysing the past relationship between the price of a barrel of oil and the price of a litre of petrol in the UK, it has been found that oil trading at $100 a barrel could see the price of a litre of petrol jumping from £1.35 today to £1.50. This would cost drivers doing 8,000 miles a year almost £140 more to fill their cars. Were the price of a barrel of oil to jump to $120, the price of petrol could increase to around £1.70 a litre, increasing annual fuel costs by over £320 a year. Meanwhile, price caps on the cost of electricity in place until June, we're in March, so 3 months this year, will shield drivers of EVs from the shocks we are currently seeing in global energy markets. At present, EVs are already over £870 a year cheaper to charge than a petrol car is to fuel. Importantly, they aren't cheaper to run. So it doesn't matter were the price of a barrel of oil to jump to $100, those savings could jump to over £1,000 a year. Were a barrel of oil to hit $120, they would jump to almost £1,200 a year. Gas prices are set to push up electricity prices from July, as happened during the gas crisis that started in late 2021. But renewables will reduce the impact with large wind farms, cutting the wholesale power price by a third in 2025. And even with higher electricity prices, EVs remain cheaper to run than petrol cars, with fueling costs of less than a third of those of a petrol car, but during some of the worst of the gas crisis in 2022. So that's the worst. That's the very worst. How long was that? Was it a day? Was it 2 days? Means nothing, does it? That means absolutely nothing. Depreciation on electric vehicles more than negates any saving on fuel. Way more. The inconvenience. And don't forget, this is only if you charge at home 80% of the time. It's just garbage. Reports of fuel shortages and 90 car queues are coming in, with one station near Glasgow reported as already charging 169.9p for a litre of petrol. Again, worst case scenario, I drove around here yesterday. I didn't see any petrol queues. I didn't rush to fill my car up. because I'm not that desperate. Commenting, Colin Walker, head of transport at the ECIU, said, "This isn't the first time that wars and global shocks have left British drivers facing a jump in their fuel bills, and it won't be the last. But with over 1.8 million EVs now on the UK's road, there are an increasing number of drivers who are much more protected from these spikes in fuel prices. Accelerating the transition to EVs, increasingly powered by electrons generated by British wind and solar farms, will help the UK and its dependency on foreign oil and protect its drivers from volatile markets over which we have no control. Oil is traded internationally, so trying to squeeze more out of the North Sea has little impact on the price paid at the pump." So, that's pretty good. He's bigged up electricity while putting down the advantages of drilling for oil in the North Sea that we could just get. The UK car industry is producing ever more electric cars. The electric Nissan Leaf is already rolling off the production lines in Sunderland, while production of JLR's new electric models is expected to start in the West Midlands this year. So that's the first story written by Colin Walker on March the 6th that went to people who should have a reasonable idea of that. First story is probably just stretching it, but could be believable. Now, what about you morons out there? You people who need educating. You people at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit are trying to get to jump ship from petrols and diesels and get an electric. What about you? You're not so clued up. They tell you that you need educating. And this is how they educate you. They educate you with shite. The next story. Price of a barrel of oil could surge to $150. In the last story, it was $120. It was from 100 to 120, written on the same day by the same person. But now in this one, it's to $150. Why would there be two different stories? If you just sat there and you're on the fence about buying an EV, what would perhaps just push you over the edge? A massive lie? Would that do it? If you're just on the fence, could just push you over, couldn't it? These are the dirty tricks that these evangelists are using. Okay? Listen to this. Same person, same day, different amounts. Brent crude surges to $90 a barrel. All right, so it's not got to the $100 yet. In the first story, it's not got to the $120 in the first story yet. And it's still way off the amount in this story. And Qatar's energy minister warns prices of a barrel of oil could jump to $150. By Colin Walker, last updated 6th of March 2026. With Brent crude today surging to $90 a barrel and Qatar's energy minister warning that the price of a barrel of oil could jump to $150. Colin Walker, head of transport at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, said, "Such an increase in the price of oil could see a litre of petrol jumping to around £1.90, a price last seen in 2022, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, adding over £500 to the average fuel bill of a British petrol car driver." And you know what? That's actually happened, and history shows that petrol cars were still cheaper to own than an EV. It's happened. It's done and dusted. It was still cheaper. We know it was because of the depreciation on EVs, because people like you are putting out stories like this, and other people like me and other people that are catching on can see through the bullshit that you have to resort to in order to make EVs seem attractive to Joe Public. And you need Joe Public to buy them, to bail out the other people who have to buy them, and also the people that have to sell them, to mitigate their losses. All this is just crap. But with 1.8 million EVs now on the UK's roads, an increasing number of British drivers are insulated from these spikes in international energy markets, accelerating the transition to EVs, increasingly powered by electrons generated by British wind and solar farms. It is one of the most effective things the UK can do to end its dependency on foreign oil and protect its drivers from volatile markets over which we have no control.
We have plenty of control. We pay 20% VAT on fuel and 53 pence per litre fuel tax. At £1.35 per litre, 1 gallon costs £6.14p. Of that, nearly half, £3.43, is tax. They control £3.43 per gallon. And that is the amount that EV drivers will end up having to pay to replace the tax revenue from ICE cars. EV tipping point. Be careful what you wish for.
Recent analysis by the ECIU of the past relationship between the price of a barrel of oil and the price of a litre of petrol in the UK has found that oil trading at $100 a barrel, not $150, could see the price of a litre of petrol jumping from $1.35 today to $1.50. This would cost drivers doing 8,000 miles a year almost £140 more to fill their cars. 2 pints of beer a month, less than 1 packet of fags a month, for all the stuff that you can do in your car, for all the freedom that your car gives you. £140 more to fill their cars. Were the price of a barrel of oil to jump to $120, the price of petrol could increase to around £1.70 a litre, increasing annual fueling costs by over £320 a year. In the case of oil hitting $150 a barrel, the petrol could hit £1.90 a litre. Still, even in their worst case scenario, it's not going to be as dear as it was back in 2022, when everybody just got about the business, still kept running their petrol cars, and still saved more than they would do if they bought an electric vehicle. And see fueling costs increasing by over £500 a year. Meanwhile, price caps on the cost of electricity in place until June this year will shield drivers of EVs from the shocks we are currently seeing in the global energy markets. At present, EVs are already over £870 a year cheaper to charge than a petrol car is to fuel. Were the price of a barrel of oil to jump to $100, those savings could jump to over £1,000 a year.
This EV has dropped £2,500 in a month at a dealer. If you had bought it 1 month ago, taking into account the dealer's margin, you would now have lost circa £5,000. If you now tried to sell it or part exchange it to another dealer, you would have lost £5,000. That makes the £1,000 saving on fuel look absolutely ridiculous and pathetic, and the writer of this story look like an idiot. The figures and guesstimates in these stories are misleading at best.
Were a barrel of oil to hit $120, they would jump to almost £1,200 a year. If oil hit $150 a barrel, savings would jump to £1,380. Now, what do I think of this? It was my intention to keep quiet and summarise at the end of both the articles. However, I couldn't. So let's examine it. These two pieces aren't two different takes based on new evidence. They're basically the same argument by the same person on the same day, but with a goalpost moved and the drama dial turned up depending on which version you're reading. That makes the whole thing look less like analysis and more like message management, or really scaremongering. It's the same story dressed up twice. Both articles rely on the same basic claim: oil price goes up, petrol gets dearer, therefore that makes EVs look better. That's the whole trick. And it is a trick. But if this is meant to be serious analysis, why are there two versions of the same argument published the same day with different levels of alarm and slightly different framing. One version leans on instability in the Middle East. Oil may be hitting $100 to $120. Petrol may be hitting £1.50 to £1.70. The other version suddenly escalates to Brent at $90, Qatar warning $150, petrol at £1.90, average fuel bill up over £500. So which is it? Is this supposed to be sober, evidence-based commentary, or is it just pick a scary number? Bolt an EV sales pitch onto it and fire it out to the media. But two different versions. Keep that in mind. Two different versions. Why? Why would you do that? The second article is basically the first one with extra fear poured on top. The structure of the story is nearly identical. Same ingredients, same ECIU analysis, same writer, same 8,000 miles a year assumption, same £1.35 starting petrol price, same 1.8 million EVs on UK roads, same British wind and solar farms, same protected from volatile markets line, same electricity price cap line, same annual EV savings claim. The second one just adds a bigger scare figure. $150 per barrel oil, £1.90 petrol, £1,380 EV savings. Sorry, but makes it look to me like the author, Colin, already had the template written and simply swapped in a more dramatic top line for people who are more likely to fall for a higher figure, for people that can be duped easier. Not readers from a trade magazine, Joe Private. That's not journalism, I'm afraid. It's a campaign. It's what his non-profit making firm are there for. They don't want hydrogen, they don't want hybrids, they just push electric. Why? He wants to sound precise while relying on hypotheticals, stacked on more hypotheticals. Should have, could have, would have. Look at what they're doing. Instability could send oil higher. Oil could hit $100 a barrel, or $120 a barrel, or $150 a barrel. Petrol could hit £1.50p, or £1.70p, or £1.90p. So the whole thing is just built on layered speculation, then presented with a tone of certainty. That's the problem. They're not reporting what has happened. They're trying to manufacture a conclusion. EV's good, petrol bad. Therefore, let's accelerate transition. That conclusion's already baked in the story before the first line was ever written. The article pretends EV drivers are shielded while quietly admitting electricity prices can rise too, and no doubt they will in July. This is one of the biggest tells. They say price caps will shield EV drivers until June. Gas prices are set to push up electricity prices from July, but renewables will reduce the impact. So even in their own piece, EV drivers are not actually immune to energy market shocks. They're just trying to make it sound like petrol drivers are exposed to global volatility, while EV drivers float above it on some magical cocoon of British wind and solar. It's rained every day, I think, so far this year. But electricity markets are not detached from reality either. So the word shielded is doing a lot of dishonest heavy lifting there. He's using selective framing, not balanced comparison. What's missing? No serious mention of public charging costs, broken charger availability, higher insurance, massive catastrophic depreciation, which is just going to get worse. They've even started pre-registering 26 plates already. Finance costs, battery anxiety, real-world ownership friction. The difference between home charging and public charging. Instead, it's the classic trick. Compare petrol at its most painful, hypothetical future price with EV charging in its neatest, tidiest, most flattering form. From home, on a special tariff. That's if you can charge from home. It's not balanced consumer analysis. It's advocacy for EVs. The same day, the same guy, different scale levels. That has to destroy trust. I'm showing you these two stories. Think to yourself, if you're a Joe Private, the newspapers quote this firm. You read the newspapers. You are getting a scarier, hyped up version of a story that people in the trade just don't believe. Just know that it's a lie. If one article says oil may go to $100 or up to $120, and another says, well, actually, it could go to $150. It's basically the same as a pantomime. Ooh, it's behind you. What a tosser. Both are used to sell the same political conclusion on the same day by the same person. Why should anybody trust the writer's numbers as anything more than narrative tools? It gives the impression that figures are being chosen for impact, not because they're the most credible scenario. That's why people have stopped believing this shit. Not because they hate EVs, but because they can smell when they're being handled. They can smell when they're being fed bullshit. So again, in conclusion, when the same writer can produce two versions of the same story on the same day and still not make the case consistently, why should anybody believe a word of it? The question that springs to my mind is, was the first story written for publications whose members have a faint idea about the story? The second one to frighten Joe public to death on social media and in the other motor trade parrot sites. Ask yourself why two different versions. Duplicitous or what? It's not evidence, it's cut and paste climate comms with a panic setting adjusted for the audience. If you're in that second audience, just take from this video what this climate intelligence unit thinks of you. They think they can tell you anything and you'll just believe it. That's the EV narrative. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.